Welcome to the Rockish George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne, and this is episode 144. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit like, follow, or subscribe on the platform you're listening to us on. You can also check out my work at the loudest.com on the planet, knac.com, for exclusive hard rock and heavy metal interviews, live show coverage, and more. My guest for this episode is frontman HARLEY SCHMUHL of the Mystical Hot Chocolate Endeavors. I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but I'll tell you what, their latest album, A Clock Without a Craftsman, is fantastic. It comes out on August 11th through Massacre Records, and here's Craig to tell you more about it. If I knew absolutely nothing about the Mystical Hot Chocolate Endeavors, how would you describe the band's music to me?
Absolutely. So the way that I'll typically describe it to like brand new people is it's kind of like a weird fusion between the Smashing Pumpkins and like King Crimson. So you get all the angst of the 90s, but with a little bit more of a compositional form factor of like early 70s prog. I'm a big Genesis guy, big King Crimson guy, big Yes guy. So definitely translates over to the that angst.
Definitely, from my point of view, I'd say Marillion from the UK, or mixed with Opeth and Tool.
Right on. I'll take it. Thank you.
You guys formed in 2015. How did the band come together?
I play or I write and play in a death metal band called Hate Storm Annihilation. And it was something that I loved. I grew up with. I was practically raised through the death metal scene, at least the important parts of life. I think I started that band when I was 17 here in Chicago. And pretty much what had happened was guitar became more and more like important to like learn more and more things with, just because I was growing a bit bored of kind of circling around the same kinds of, playing types and, writing strategies. And I think they were great for a long time, but then I got anxious and wanted to pursue, guitar education. Went out to the East Coast to start learning some things, from the school, which shall not be named. No, I'm kidding, at Berklee College of Music. And there I had a bunch of free time because the death metal band was taking a little bit of a break. So I started writing for like a new project. Not really with any intentions of playing out or anything like that, just writing for my own sanity. And so what ends up happening is I get dormed with William Candelario. He's a really tremendous Puerto Rican, like Latin jazz, reggae drummer. And we've got a lot of similar interests in heavy music, and prog and stuff like that. Like we spent a lot of time talking about Porcupine Tree and Pineapple Thief and Dream Theater, and just all these different kind of prog forward bands. And the one day I said to Will, "Hey man, I've got these songs. Would you be interested in working with me on it?" So it was like, I think our second semester, like we just came back from like winter break. And pretty much just got right to work. I had the first song done and ready, was from the Humanistic Perspective record. It was a song called Grace, Majesty, and the Tranquil Spiral. At this point, had no lyrics, it actually was supposed to be pretty instrumental forward. And then I kind of realized I had more I wanted to say, talk about. And so lyrical writing became a part of that. And then since then, that's kind of just been our thing. We get together for touring, but then I get to be a lonely little isolated weirdo and write music and send it to the boys to learn for runs and stuff like that. So it's pretty rad.
So the band name, did you come up with it on your own, or was it one of those meme generators? The first letter of your first name is this, your second letter of your middle name is that?
I'm actually pretty stoked because that is not what it was. I did not use technology. Goddamn you, Skynet! I will not fall for your ways. No, I came up with the Mystical Hot Chocolate Endeavors back when I was actually still in high school. At some point or another, I think it was just kind of like said as like a joke, and I threw it into a phone note, and it kind of just stayed there for for years until we were ready to get something moving. Like, because I remember that was like a big thing at the beginning when me and Will were talking. It's like, well, what do we call this band? I'm like, trust me, man, I've already got this name. Like, I've got this name. I've been saving it for a while. And like, after I told him the first time, he's been the only person ever, I mean this, that I say the Mystical Hot Chocolate Endeavors to the first time, and him just be game for it. Because most of the time I say people that name, it's just like, what in the hell are you talking about? You know? So he was game, and it's just been great since.
So your latest album is coming out on August 11th, A
Yes.
Clock Without a Craftsman through Massacre Records. This is a concept album built around lockdown isolation?
Around lockdown isolation, as well as just uh, uh, life in Boston for those 4 years during college. A lot of, just growing up and figuring shit out, and or trying to understand life at that time was tricky and a little weird, and just a lot of songs about that, about people, relationships, about destructive tendencies, about a lot of different things. And I think what ended up happening is when the lockdown kicked in, and it was finally time to get to work, like get this whole thing moving. The timing was just perfect. God, I know that's horrible to say, but the timing was just kind of perfect, where it was just everything was just doom gloom, see what happens kind of a deal. And so it gave me a lot of time to finish recording the instrumentation. I do most things out of my home studio, just in a little basement with a bunch of equipment that I've been collecting over the years, and finish up those songs. Flew Will in the middle of lockdown. That was great. Like, it was in 2020 that he was able to come out here and get that done. We spent like 3 weeks of rehearsing at the house. And then dude just killed it. He recorded what essentially came out to be a little over an hour and 30 minutes worth of recorded drums in like less than 2 8-hour days. And the first 8-hour day, like the whole first 4 hours were gone for setting mics and stuff. So yeah, my dude's the best.
Let's talk about some of the singles that you have out now. Let's
Yeah,
a little bit about what inspired Eye to Eye.
absolutely. Yeah. Eye to Eye was kind of just one of those songs that, as we can all unfortunately remember, in was it March? April of 2020, when we started becoming really, really separated as a people. Suddenly, like, I don't know, it was just kind of one of those things of like, we saw some real tragedy in Minnesota, and it brought out a lot of the worst in people, unfortunately. A lot of really horrible things, went down. Some that were kind of necessary, and then others that weren't. And I think it was that song specifically was one of those things where I wanted to talk about um, communication. I wanted to talk about being able to understand other people's struggles, whether or not you were experiencing them. I think there's a lot of people that could care less, and I think that's scary, because the moment we stop communicating, this kind of shit happens. And then, to be honest, and I love like 80s new wave music. And I'd always wanted to do a track that kind of had that kind of Depeche Mode, The Cure, Tears for Fears kind of flair to it. Planning on doing more, actually, because I loved how that song came out. So, but yeah, I love that one. And the music video, obviously, AOFX, sorry, really fast when I jump in there. My buddy AOFX, he's a Chicago-based animator, graphic artist. He just killed it. He knocked it out of the park. I told him, like, specific imagery I was kind of wanting to see, but I was just like, think Adult Swim after 1 a.m. like just colors and craziness. So you could just sit there at a TV screen and go nuts over it for a little while. And he was the same animator that also made the Sorry music video, which in my opinion he just killed it. I love how well he was able to manage. He was able to manage a graphic art situation that was so uncomfortable. Like, here are some things that, like, I'm are what this song is, can we work it? And it was like he took the assignment and he just cranked it up to 11, just really nailed it. So I give so much credit to AFX for being just such a great friend and such an amazing artist.
So let's talk about that song, Sorry. From what I
Yep.
saw in the music video, it's about domestic violence and it may
Yes, it
go
is.
beyond that.
Yeah, no, it's very much domestic violence. One of those nights in Boston, I'd been spending like extensive time just online, like watching, various. I've got this weird like affinity for like, dark source material, just understanding just how awful people can be to each other, and it was like this thing of a series of women talking about, past tragedies with abusive husbands, boyfriends, all this kind of a thing. And it was just like I was, obviously these aren't my messages to share. I'm not these women, but I'm a big fan of raising awareness. If you can show somebody something uncomfortable and you can learn from it, then, I think everybody wins after the fact, so it's just kind of, I'm glad it was made. I'm glad it was done. And, I hope in some way or another, if there's somebody going through some serious, issues in these kinds of regards, that they can speak out. Let us know. Let us help. Let us do something. Anything. Yeah.
The third single you have out is How Much Longer, if you want to
How
talk
much
about
longer?
what inspired that.
Yeah, absolutely. How much longer was actually the last song I made for the Clock record. That one was like significantly after everything else was made. I kind of like, it was one of those things where I'd use the joke, oh, how much longer is this goddamn lockdown gonna, work out for? And that was kind of like the running title. And then it was one of those things where like I'll typically find oftentimes with a lot of lyrical content with these songs, it's kind of like after a while of like listening and understanding exactly what it is you're writing or writing about, it's more of the song's meaning kind of opens up to you. And it was like, oh, I've got a lot of things going on right now that I'm not like completely thrilled how long they're lasting, and I'd really like this to, run its course and just be done with. And I guess that's kind of like that. That's kind of what the song is. It's this kind of like life waiting game we all play, and sometimes the those really dark places kind of, they push to the surface, and then, things come out, but like it takes time, and it's, yeah, a lot of that. More of those tracks like, How Much Longer, or even on the full length Present But Not Here, or I'll Never Be, they're more uh, they're a little bit more personal in that kind of a way. It's my specific experience, and I don't want to speak for others, but I think a lot of other people kind of have these similar thoughts sometimes, and sometimes just hearing that out of somebody else is like, oh, I'm not alone. Like it's pretty nice, that's why I love bands like Korn, for example. Like I'm a huge Korn fan. I think the words that Jonathan Davis has been, putting out, for years and years have been some of the darkest but truest parts of like the human psyche, and how nasty, we can be to ourselves, regardless of, outside pressures, which there's a ton,
Clock Without a Craftsman's coming out digitally as well as a double CD. Seems like the kind of music that would be great on vinyl. Was that not an option for you at this juncture?
So at this point, we just because of the amount of materials on this record, I think they were saying it was going to have to be like a 3 LP release. And just that it costs a lot to do right now. Hopefully there's, at least enough pull from, or enough, what's the word? Demand. I hate even saying it like that because it makes it sound like even more of a product, but I hope there is enough of a demand from people to want to, have it on vinyl, because I'd love to, like, I would love to see the record's cover, which was done by my other incredibly talented friend Landon Richmond. His artist name is No Truth, KNOWNO Truth. And so he, like, I love that record cover, and I think seeing that on vinyl would be really cool and make me really happy one day. So hopefully people want that.
Are you going to be taking the band out to promote the album with live performances?
Yes, sir. We're pretty much, I think 2 days from announcing or whatever officially. But essentially, we're going to be going for a little 2 week run in September with the live band. Unfortunately, not going to be hitting either of the coasts at this point in time, but we will be getting out. We're going to be playing a lot of shows, and then hopefully, once that's done and the record's started to move around a bit more, we can think about doing, even more, because I've been told about all these markets that I guess I've been missing for like a while now. Like I guess there's like 5 or 6 rad places all in Florida that I've just not tried. So I guess we're gonna give that a go, and it's gonna be a good time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The album's being released through Massacre Records. How did you end up signing with them?
So Massacre actually got hooked up with an agency, like a management agency we were working with for a while. No longer working with them anymore. But essentially, we were shopping out the music, and Massacre seemed to be one of the takers. And I can always appreciate any kind of a label that's willing to take a risk on something different, because I know we're a little different. It's just the stuff's kind of chaotic and um kind of extreme in ways that I think some people might be a little wary of, but Massacre, we're all about it. So I've been very pleased that they want to keep working with us. So yeah.
They released your Earth Day EP back in 2022 that was called Mother, I believe.
Yeah, the Mother EP. Yeah, yeah.
That one was it was a couple of cover songs and an original song in conjunction with Earth Day, environmentally conscious message. If you want to talk a little bit about that EP in case I missed something there.
Oh yeah, no, totally. Yep, it was the two covers. The Landscape is Changing by Depeche Mode, one of my favorite bands of all time, and then a song called Cancer that was originally released by Filter, the band Filter, on their was it title of record or title of album? I can never remember that goddamn thing's name, but that had been like one of my favorite B-sides from that album, and I was always thinking to myself, like, this would be a really cool song to kind of just like, add a little bit more layering and make it sound even bigger. And I love both of those covers. Me and the boys were actually talking about trying to figure out a way to do one or the other on on an upcoming tour at some point, because that would be a lot of fun. But then there was the track Mother, MU-TH-UR, which is based off of the Mother computer from the Alien movie. I love Ridley Scott. I love everything about those, specifically the first two. After that, it's very good, but it's not quite the same. But wanted a little tongue in cheek kind of jokey thing, I guess. I love using movies, sci-fi, video games, for referencing things in songs. Just because I'm an absolute loser like that, but it's a good time. I love that song. Love playing that song out live. Actually, that's a really fun one to do. But yeah, I love that EP. Plan on doing actually a lot more like holiday centric EP releases. We got the Earth Day one. At some point, there's got to be a mystical Christmas album, because, like, why would there not? Any reason to jingle bells in 7/8 time or whatever? No, I can. But it's it'd be cool to kind of keep working with those things.
Now, was your debut album A Humanistic Perspective? Was that a concept record as well?
In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. That album was me for the very first time trying to write music that wasn't just straightforward death metal. So that was kind of just like, hey, let's put together music that isn't that. The songs have very little to do with each other, I guess, in a thematic sense. Although it was a good place to start, because I feel like I didn't pigeonhole the band to any kind of a specific sound, right off the get-go. So it was kind of like, we can change and evolve as time goes over. I'm hoping if there's anything people can appreciate from the Clock record, it's the fact that every song doesn't really have a whole lot of crossover. I mean, some things, but not a ton. So yeah.
So I was surfing on your website and I saw this tab that said unreleased music, and I clicked on it,
Yes.
and it's password protected. What is that all about?
Essentially, that is just the poor man's EPK. That way, that way, when we're sending things out to any and all festivals or show bookers or whatever, I can send them that, and it had the links to all the music videos before they were out, and the full album for that matter. Um,
I
yeah,
got
yeah, totally. But that being said, there is so much more unreleased mystical music that's just ready to go. So hopefully, if people like this one, I probably got enough music for the next 10 years for this band. So like, let's do it. Yeah.
Let's hope it's all relevant in 10 years.
That as well. That is also, man, I was thinking about that a lot actually with the clock record because it's been done for so long at this point. Just waiting, for Massacre to set the chess pieces, where they need to be before things come out. And it's like, in a lot of ways, I almost feel like the lyrical content has become even more like relatable. It's like, oh man, I thought we were fucked 3 years ago, but boy, where are we now? Kind of a thing. Now, well, kind of, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of scary. I don't want to keep writing, sad stuff that just ends up becoming more and more true over time. But it seems to be the case.
Now, do you still work with the death metal act Hate Storm Annihilation?
Yeah, it's a weird one. I would love to be doing more things with Hate Storm on the regular. But Constantine, my drummer, Constantine Termanjiv, he is a new father. He's a new father. He's got a little drummer to be that he's raising with his beautiful girlfriend. And I think that's going to be his focus and attention for a little while. That being said, I've got plenty of music ready to go for that band too. I one of the last things I did before leaving Boston was I got the last Hate Storm full length done for that project, and it was going to be this like really rad. It's just like a 6 song or like 45-minute release, something like that. But it was a little bit more us on our first record, so a little bit more straightforward, like Morbid Angel meets Cannibal Corpse Worship, kind of a thing. As opposed to we're a bit proggier on the second release, and I think some people liked it, and some people were kind of like, I don't know about this, So I was like, all right, let's go back to the 7-string. Let's tune that shit down. Let's make some things happen. So I'm ready. I'm ready when Constantine's ready. Honest to God's truth.
You do some vocal work for some other bands. I saw you did some for Necronomicon Ex Mortis.
Mortis, yeah, absolutely. No, so Necronomicon Ex Mortis is the project of my buddy Michael Bala, really, really tremendous shredder, ripper, guitarist that I met at Berkeley. And he, like, we just stayed close over the years. He lives here in Chicago as well. So like we'll get together most Tuesdays to go to Chicago Music Exchange and play a bunch of shit we can't afford. And, but yeah, it's cool because Mike he'll write up, an EP's worth of material. He'll have the lyrics ready to go. And then I'll just kind of help him phrase it, so things kind of sound a little bit more, straightforward, I guess you would say. And yeah, it's a super low stress gig that I just get to pretend to be a demon person again for a little bit, and then I go back to my alternative prog world. So yeah, I would definitely recommend anybody who's into like more old school death metal, straightforward riffing, Necronomicon Ex Mortis. There's a new EP coming out. It might actually be on August 11th as well. I'm not 100% certain about that, to be honest, but I think that's what Mike was telling me, is it's dropping either at the same date or like just before or after. But really, really good stuff. The Silver Bullet EP. We're both like old like horror fans, so like any excuse to write about like a rocket wheelchair escaping a werewolf while Gary Busey is doing his thing. Like I love all that shit.
Sounds fantastic. Craig, those are all the questions I have for you today. The new album by the Mystical Hot Chocolate Endeavors, A Clock Without a Craftsman comes out on August 11th through Massacre Records. Fantastic album. I loved it. You got so much to be proud of, and thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you very much, George. That really means a ton, man. Thank you for having me.
Once again, I want to thank Craig Harley Schmuhl of the Mystical Hot Chocolate Endeavors for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out their latest album, A Clock Without a Craftsman, out on Massacre Records. Head over to your favorite music streaming app. Take a listen to the album. If you like what you hear, buy a physical copy. Support the artist. For all things The Mystical Hot Chocolate Endeavors, head over to their official website, themysticalhotchocolatendeavors.com. I also want to thank Dustin Hardman of Hardman Promotions and Massacre Records for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. Discover your next favorite artist on the Rock is George podcast.